Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus, and in this video I want to do a snapshot of a quote by Paramahansa Yogananda to sort of illustrate what the quote other side is like, what astral projection can be like depending on a person's skill level, and sort of what people can expect, I guess, in the long run, given that we're all on this road together. So sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions about what the other side is like and also what to expect, and sometimes even a little bit of doom and gloom surrounding the subject, or people claiming that you are less physically able or the experience is somehow dumbed down from what we experience on this side of life, and that's not really true. In fact, other spectrums of existence are on scales much greater than what we experience here in this dimension. So I'm going to go ahead and read the quote. It's from Autobiography of a Yogi. Before we do that, a couple quick updates. I do get out of breath sometimes at night when I'm doing videos because of my post-C virus long haul symptoms, that this kind of disease I have. So sometimes I may have to stop and catch my breath a little bit. So apologize for that. So if you see me having to break my train of thought sometimes, that's why. And also, yeah, of course, if you want to get involved, hit that subscribe button, or you can theoretically come on as a patron over at the Patreon page, patreon.com/Afterlife Topics. That's a good way to get involved, help support this channel, help support this work. And yeah, and I'm always around to contact here on YouTube, or also on Facebook, or on the Facebook group as well. So anyway, so to continue, we are talking about this quote from Paramahansa Yogananda, one of the great kind of early, if you want to use the word guru, I don't like the word guru, but he's a guy who helped the East meet the West and bring forward a lot of ideas of consciousness, meditation, back when he was very active, quite a while back, like the 1930s, I believe. Anyway, so Autobiography of a Yogi is chock full of information about astral projection experiences, his own, which do sometimes come from what we could interpret as a Hindu perspective, but it doesn't make the experiences any less valid. It's simply a reminder that your own religious beliefs or predisposition, where you're coming from, tends to paint or reflect the types of worlds that you enter into when you leave your body. And this makes sense given that people do flock to where like minds congregate. Consciousness tends to cluster together. So anyway, so let's take a read. It says, if you could perceive the astral world, you would know that it is infinitely more real than the earth plane, which is just inert matter without the enlivening powers of the upholding astral world. As in, the astral world is almost what's keeping this place held up. This place is a much lesser version of what many describe as the real world, which he uses the terminology astral. And some people nowadays don't even use astral because they like to categorize different types of afterlives. So some people who say, oh, you need to get away from the astral and then go to the mental world, or there's different terminologies, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I think it's better to just keep things simple, because it really is difficult sometimes to categorize the other side because so much blends together. Anyway, material existence is only a shadow of that higher, finer dimension of reality. The world is the result of the astral world. The blueprints of everything in the physical universe have been astrally conceived. All the forms and forces in nature, including the complex human body, have been first produced in that realm where God's causal ideations are made visible in forms of heavenly light and vibratory energy. Then they are materialized in physical form out of the ether. But the astral body of man and the astral counterparts of everything in nature are vastly more beautiful, more vibrant, more expressive of the harmony and perfection of the divine creator than what we perceive when our consciousness is limited to matter. And what's interesting is, I would say, elements of this are true no matter where you go in a proper astral projection trip. because even these kind of lower realms that we go to, you see some of these elements popping out. For example, parts of what we call the Earth-like astral plane, which is typically where I end up if I am projecting. Even if I were to just step outside and look around, or pick up a rock, or look at some bushes, you do get that sensation that he's describing, which you don't necessarily get on this world, unless maybe you are very adept at meditation practices and things like that. And if you are very adept at that, you might be able to tap into what, as he describes it, the vibratory energy. But on that side, it happens quite naturally and is very apparent in nature, in the sense that if you astral project and go out into nature, then you can feel that energy. And what's nice is that if you are an astral projector, you can remember that experience. Now, I think people who live on that side tend to take it for granted. And of course, that's one of the pluses of incarnation on this world, because then you get that perspective of what it's like to not be connected to your greater reality around you. But what is important to note here is that when you connect into that side, into that world, it is still a world that, it's almost wrong to say mirrors, although it does mirror this life. Because it's the same sort of, how do you say this? It's the same topography, if you will. So even this whole world has an astral counterpart, and then there's different levels of that astral counterpart, meaning it's like there's many different worlds, like Earth, that look like Earth and have the same topography. There's the same locations as this world. So in essence, it's like you don't actually leave this world. You're moving into higher, greater versions of the same place that you're in. And this is something many astral projectors can testify to, is that it's like they're in the same place that they were in before, but now it's a greater version of it. Much the same way that we can have a parallel life on that side, which is almost like a greater version of our life on this side. So even having a very standard astral experience on that astral flip side to this world, you experience, even if it's just a little bit of that higher vibratory nature, where, for example, if you go out into the woods, you go into the forest, you will have a greater degree of feeling the forest, feeling the vibration, feeling the nature around you, as if in a way that I think is not always easy to describe or fully understand until you can experience it for yourself. And this is why people who have experiences on the other side will often say it was more real than this world. Now, I think this exceeds or into higher, greater levels the higher up you go, in the sense of higher planes of existence. The astral earth level, you feel that a little bit, but then if you go into the quote higher astral plane, which again can be the same topography even of the same planet you're on right now, you will have a much greater experience of feeling that kind of what he may describe as a heavenly interconnectedness to the world around you. But this, of course, the important point being, though, is that it is still a vibrant world where you possess an astral body. The astral body of man, the astral counterparts of everything in nature are vastly more beautiful. And then again, he's referring to the astral form, the astral human form, which we take when we cross over. Again, there's the everlasting debate on the forums, people arguing that there is no astral body because we, of course, become formless consciousness. The issue of dualism versus idealism, and that's going to be the next video, I think. But Yogananda, the original great astral projection writer, would refute that. Now, he describes exalted levels even beyond the astral planes, where which we would describe, I guess, as mental levels, which the more ancient and enlightened gurus from his sort of Hindu world that he belongs to eventually ascend into, which to me it's a whole different it's a whole different ballpark to get into, and one that in many ways is outside of my pay grade. But of course, Yogananda does talk about it quite a bit, which is worth reading about. There's a lot of very interesting information in Autobiography of a Yogi, if you have not yet read that book. And it is also interesting how well, of course, it dovetails into subjects like near-death experiences, where people describe very similar vistas as Yogananda describes, or for example, as Jürgen Ziva describes. So people from all walks, all backgrounds, kind of seeing, experiencing, describing the same types of places, the same types of experiences. So what does this mean? Ultimately, it means that when we cross over, when we die, we can expect to be in real, solid, physical worlds, as in the sense that you're in a real environment with trees, rocks, insects, nature, but it all exists on this higher vibratory level, which I think the best way to describe it would be as if, imagine here in this world that you don't feel connected to the world around you. For one thing, you're really, really connected to your physical body and its diseases and problems and aches and pains, and you're not tuned into the world around you. But imagine being in an environment, in a world where you immediately can feel tuned into everything around you, to the rocks, the grass, the crickets, and all of that, the leaves, without having to necessarily be a master meditator. You just have to walk outside and you feel it all hit you at once. Like, you feel the emotions, you feel the colors, you feel all of this kind of interpenetrating you, as opposed to you just being like a silent witness who doesn't really get that feeling. Some of us, when we go into nature in this world and meditate, as I have, we do get that connected feeling, but it's like we have to work at it, and we have to detach ourselves, in a sense, from our physical bodies just a little bit, so that we are not so sucked into the 3D world around us, with our own vessel, with the 3D earth body, which while I think the human body, for example, it's a very beautiful thing, here in this lowest level plane of existence that we're stuck on at the moment, it's a very kind of sad interpretation of what could be a very beautiful thing. And so again, when we go to that side, we're not being held back by that. We're not being slowed down by, again, the aches and pains and sicknesses and diseases and post-viral syndromes like what I'm dealing with, the stuff that interrupts your ability to be at flow and harmony with the world around you. What this world can do is provide the opportunity to work through those sicknesses and pains and problems, and learn to be attuned to the world around you anyway, and by transcending beyond that. And this, of course, is a meditation practice, and doing it here in this very difficult condition would make us very skilled at being able to enjoy those new levels of, for lack of a better term, joy and bliss that we could potentially experience on the next side. Which is why I'm not going to become a yogi and move out into the mountains anytime soon, or go join a temple or anything like that. I can incorporate some of that into my life, at least, as best as I can. And while maybe not mimicking the life of Yogananda, taking a little bit of that with me, so that I can learn to enjoy this world the same way that we could enjoy the world beyond, and while at the same time, hopefully someday, enhancing my astral projection skills to be able to go to greater vistas and greater types of worlds, like Yogananda was able to do as well. So again, I hope this quote helps shed some light on what the afterlife is like, what higher planes of existence are like. These are experienced by millions of people all over the world. Sometimes people seldom speak about it because it's a weird thing to talk about, whether that's through near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. But there is a whole civilization on that side, with cities and houses and cars and stuff that you would recognize here, yet it's interpenetrated with this higher form of existence that Yogananda and many other writers and experiencers have talked about. And that's the real way to understand what the afterlife is like. Even though it's a little bit difficult to describe and put into words, probably the person who has been able to put it into words the best out of anybody was Yogananda, which is why you should check out what he has to say. That's it for this video. Hope this was of some benefit to you. Once again, you can check out books that I've written, like Understanding Life After Death, with the Afterlife and Beyond. Those are on Amazon.com, or just head to afterlifetopics.com. You can sign up for the classes, which is really just discussion groups, guest interviews, and things like that. and get involved that way, or just pick up a couple of books, or join the Facebook group, or whatever it is, or shoot me a message, shoot me an email. That's it for this video, and hopefully I'll see you guys pretty soon.